Okay, Don't Look Back, Volume 1, by Waffle Maker. Today was one of those days. It was a warm, misty day that Sephora Oaks had decided to take advantage of. Most days her friends would invite her to all sorts of places to all sorts of places before school started. To all sorts of places before school started. But today seemed like the perfect day to stay in and catch up on her reading. In fact, the entire town seemed to be tucked away in their warm homes. Sephora called a voice, "I want to go outside." April, Sephora's little sister, loved the outdoors. She loved jumping in puddles, admiring the bugs, and making mud cakes. And on rainy days like these, she could play in the mud for hours on end. All right, just get your raincoat on first. While April played and talked to Mr. Beetle, Sephora sat on the back patio reading her book as she listened to the muffled sound of rain in the background. Sephora had been reading a book on Greek mythology and was in the middle of reading the tragic story of Orpheus and Eurydice. I'm probably saying those wrong. I'm sorry. The story tells of the two happily in love getting married, but in the middle of the ceremony, a snake comes and bites Eurydice, killing her. Orpheus, out of grief for his lost beloved, decides to retrieve her from the underworld, and the king and queen agree that they will return her to the earth on one condition. As Orpheus leaves the underworld, he must not look back to check if she's following him. He can only trust that she is. As he left the underworld, he made sure to not look behind him, but he heard no footsteps or anything to make him believe she was there. But foolishly, before he stepped back to earth, he looked behind him, and in the matter of seconds he saw her shriek as she plummeted to the bottom of the underworld, losing his beloved forever. Boom! Sephora lurched into her seat. It was starting to thunder. "April, time to come inside." Sephora looked up and saw that April was gone. Sephora focused her eyes on the forest ahead. She put on her hood and ventured in. "April, what did we say about going into the forest?" Sephora got no response, and her worry grew. It was now raining harder and harder. "April!" By this time, Sephora was drenched in rain. "April, you're going to get sick out here." Still no response. She had been walking through the forest for what felt like hours. It was now dark out, and the rain seemed to grow louder as she went on. "April," she screeched, "this isn't funny anymore." The rain was so loud that it pounded through her head. She couldn't even hear herself speak. Sephora took out her phone to use as a flashlight, and as soon as she turned it on, it was her. Her face was as pale as the moon and eyes as white as snow. Her body was covered in dirt and residue, and she gave a vacant stare at the ground. It was April, Sephora's little sister, gone. She stared at her lost sister as the rain fell. Oops, that's the wrong volume. 4 years after the incident, Sephora sat at home watching Netflix, bored out of her mind. She knew she should be studying for the finals, but she felt so warm in her nice, cozy blanket. Ring, ring, ring. Sephora picked up her phone. It was her friend Garrett. Sephora and Garrett had been friends since the first grade. They did everything together, and he always knew how to cheer her up. "What's up, dude?" Sephora responded. Can I come over?" "Why? What's wrong?" "Nothing. Just call Rose, and we'll both come over." Okay." Sephora had a gut feeling that something was up. Garrett never asks to come over so unexpectedly, unless something is up. When Garrett and Rose came over, the mood seemed heavy, which was strange because whenever Rose was over, the room would glow. Rose had springy curls and flushed cheeks, and a smile as innocent as a child. But today her eyes seemed worried and scared. "Okay, someone tell me what's going on," demanded Sephora sternly. Garrett motioned for her to sit down. "You know the story of Samantha Green?" asked Garrett. "Yeah, the girl that went missing then came back unexpectedly." "Well, I went on the dark web." "The dark web?" Sephora wondered why Garrett would ever attempt this. In the corner of her eye, she could see Rose trying to join in, opening her mouth and closing it nervously. "Rose, tell me what's going on," Sephora said, concerned. I don't think it's a very good idea, she said, choking back tears. Rose had always been the sensitive type, but this seemed more serious. I talked with Daniel Green, explained Garrett. Okay, who's that? Asked Sephra impatiently. Samantha's husband. He told me some things I thought you might want to hear. The room grew silent. He said that Samantha came back because he knew a way to bring back the dead. Sephra's eyes grew larger, but Rose shook her head in fear. Sephra, I don't think. No, Garrett said, cutting her off. We've all lost someone we love, and we all want them back. We're doing it. Sephra wiped away a tear. Just tell me what we do next. Last volume. Hope it's more cliffhanger. Rose was the most frightened. She would be dealing with otherworldly things if she didn't want to be involved in. She's always been a cautious girl, but this was way out there. She decided to leave Sephra's early to think some things through. Goodbye, guys, she said as her mom pulled out. Bye, Rose, Garrett and Sephra said at the same time. Sephra turned to Garrett. So, why were you so eager to do this for me? Sephra said. I mean, the dark web? There's dangerous stuff there. Garrett looked down and then towards the road, then back at Sephra. Sephra realized why he went through all this trouble for her. She grabbed his hand. Do you like me? He gave a faint nod and smiled. Sephra looked longingly into his hazelnut eyes. They both leaned in and kissed. Ooh, romantic. A week later, they planned to accomplish their mission. You sure these are the instructions, Garrett? Sephra asked. Yeah, definitely. My mom isn't going to be happy to see this on her floor, you know. There was a long line of blood going down her hallway. Rose, Garrett, and Sephra all had to use their own blood, to make a walkway. All they had to do was walk down it without looking back, and the one they loved will come back to life. Guys, I really don't want to do this, Rose cried. Rose, stop being a baby and do it, Garrett yelled. It went silent. Rose and Sephra looked at each other concerned. Sorry, I was just frustrated, he said, looking down and pinching the bridge of his nose. Rose, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, said Sephra gently. Rose sniffed and wiped a tear. No, I'll do it. Rose gave Garrett a glare. Because I'm not a baby. The three held hands side by side, Sephra in the middle and Garrett and Rose to either side of her. Sephra could feel Rose squeezing her hand as tight as possible. How long? Okay, almost done. They all put their blindfolds down, and on the count of 3, they all stepped onto the walkway. Out of nowhere, there was a violent wind, even though they were inside. In a matter of seconds, blackness seemed to fill Sephra's mind. There was fear, despair, heartache, sadness, all rolled in one, but they kept walking. It felt like the hallway was never going to end, but all of a sudden, Sephra felt Rose pull away from her hand. Rose, said Sephra frantically. Grandma, Sephra heard her rumble. The group stopped walking. Grandma, Rose shrieked at the top of her lungs. She heard her collapse to the ground. Pull it together, Rose, yelled Garrett. Through the heavy wind, blindfold still on, Sephra knelt down next to Rose. Rose, hey, listen, it's gonna be all right. But Rose didn't respond. She kept sobbing on the ground and yelling Grandma over and over. I need to turn around, she screamed. Rose, no you can't. Sephra screamed back, grabbing her shoulders in an effort to prevent her. But it was too late. She heard a scream and then nothing else. Rose was gone. Forget her, yelled Garrett. We need to move on. Garrett grabbed Sephra's hand and started running. But out of nowhere he stopped. Garrett, why did you stop? We need to keep going. He's not there. What? Dad, why aren't you following me? Sephra had no idea what he was saying, but she had already lost one friend and she wasn't going to lose 2. Listen to me, Garrett. I think we're almost there. Just try and power through a little longer. I know you can do this, Sephra said, pleading with him. I'm longer. I know you can do this. No. Wrong thing. Through a little longer. I think we're almost there. Just try and power through a little longer. I know you can do this, Sephra said, pleading with him. I'm taking my blindfold off, said Garrett. What? No! Once again, another painful scream, and then nothing else. Sephra was all alone now. Once she returns, she'll be the only one returning. Sephora walked a little longer, but sensed he was near the end. She took the blindfold off, but didn't look behind her. She kneeled now down in the front of the gateway. "I made it," she whispered to herself. "But she's not there, is she?" A tear rolled down her face. "April," she said softly, "say something." She saw more violently now. "Say something." She slammed both her fists on the ground. "Ha ha ha, now I'm going insane, aren't I?" she cackled. "That's it," Sephora screamed impatiently, and she swiveled around. "April," she said, relieved. There was right in front of her. "April, oh my goodness, it's you. I've missed you so much." April looked exactly as Sephora saw her last. White eyes, pale skin, and covered in residue. Sephora grabbed her hands. "Come on, let's get out of here," said Sephora. "Why did you turn around?" April asked in a monotone voice. "Well, 'cause I wasn't sure if you were following me." "Now you're going to stay with me forever." "What?" asked Sephora frantically. Sephora tried to run away, but it was as if her hands were glued to April's hands. As soon as she knew it, her limbs sprouted black branch-like strings that wrapped around her. She was consumed in blackness, and Sephora was no more. Wow. Well, why don't we finish this off with some poetry? Let's do... I want something a little bit happier, but poetry is very nice always. So, Here in the Garden. Here in the garden, I know just the game. Soon you'll know how it's done. Here in the garden, every day is the same, but we can still have so much fun. You still haven't smiled, but yet I hear laughter, and as long as there's that, nothing else even matters. I have enough joy, and I'll spare some to grant to you so you can stop with your desolate rant. We may be trapped, but you'll learn to adopt like everyone had before you. You'll be okay, I swear that to you. There's no reason for you to feel so blue. Here in the garden, you pick the game and teach me how it's done. Here in the garden, time's till, and you're giving up on fun. And you've given up on fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the stories, even though they weren't much. Oh, and I'm sorry about the cringy parts. And this is also probably cringy. But yeah, that's it for today. I hope you have a good day or night wherever you are. Bye!